The following podcast contains spoilers, adult language, a knife to the belly, an emotional reunion, and in the end, a very, very satisfying death.
Well, I don't know. I thought Isabel's death was very unsatisfying.
This is a message from the Office of Emergency Preparedness. Due to the recent crisis, we ask that you remain in your homes. Do not attempt to communicate or interact with the creatures, even if they are people you know.
Lock your doors. Bar your windows. The dead are coming. It's time for Aim for the Head, an all Walking Dead universe podcast. And now, here are your hosts, Diana and Steve.
Hi, and welcome back to Aim for the Head podcast. I'm Diana.
Mila Steve, bonjour!
Bonjour! And this week we're discussing Season 2, Episode 4 of Daryl, Dixon. The title of the episode is Le Paradis pour toi.
Toi?
Pour toi?
Oh.
Oui, oui. Funny side thing is I don't know when or how it happened. I can't remember, but a couple of months back we were joking around with my niece, and she started doing she thought she was doing a French accent, and all she kept doing was twirling her fake mustache. And she would do that and just go, baguette, baguette. And we're like, no, that's not, I don't think you have if you think my attempt at doing an accent and, painting some French stereotypes onto me are bad, then my 10-year-old niece twirling her fake mustache and just saying baguette, baguette is,
it is a French word. So.
It is. It sure is. I'm like, dude, you could just say souffle if you wanted to. A croissant. Yeah. So that was when she doing that.
Peru.
Yeah, Peru. She's a fan of the French fries, as is all small kids these days. French fries.
I believe we call them freedom fries because we don't like French.
Fries, tendies, and pizza. Steady diet of carbs on these kids today. All right. So obviously we're off the rails already.
All right.
So this week we're going to be discussing episode 4. Before we get into the details of the episode itself and our episode description and all that, let's just do a quick play-by-play, a little quick reactionary of how we felt about this episode. I went first last week, so by rights, Steve should go first anyway, but it's also his birthday.
Well, yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
Yes,
okay.
it is.
Yeah.
I just like to say, you only turn 36 once, and this day this made me very happy. So yes, it was.
Yeah, you do only turn 36 once, but then you continue. If you continue to turn 36 for the next years,
no.
Anyway.
It's so weird. All these things that I experienced when I wasn't alive yet. I don't understand it, but yeah. No, I will happily go first.
Excellent.
As it should be, because it is, my day. So
it is your day.
Myself and Carrie Fisher, born on this day. So there you go.
Oh, look at that.
I know. All right. So, you know how when we're reviewing the show and episodes, and you kind of get those episodes where it's just kind of standard by the numbers and not a lot happened. It just sort of kind of it was just kind of like a monster of the week kind of story. This was not one of those episodes. Like 15 minutes in, I'm like, wow, Isabel better find a dumpster to jump under here.
Yeah,
and then sure enough, I'm like, well, okay, she's gone. So, and then I thought, okay, well now as soon as she said, I see the fireflies, by the way, I could just hear all the shippers going, so you're saying there's a chance. And then of course later on at the end of the episode when Sinead is auditioning to be an extra in the background of the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark, I'm like, wow, they whacked 2 big characters in one episode. Holy crap. And then I remembered, oh yeah, there's only 6 of these.
Yeah.
So
basically they did like 3 or 4 episodes worth of deaths in one.
In one, in like 28 minutes or something. Yeah, I
exactly.
mean, it was phenomenal. So there were definitely still a couple of course moments here that happened. But overall, I mean, you have to say this episode, I mean, it just kind of right out of the gate, picking up right where we left off with Carol, facing the firing squad. And it just was off like a shot, no pun intended. Yeah. And really, with the exception of maybe the sequence at the end with Dee Dee and Theo at their bed and breakfast thing that Daryl and Carol ran into. I mean, it was just full speed ahead the whole way. And it just, you didn't have a chance to catch your breath. It just was like, come on, we're going. Right. And I mean, it was super highly entertaining, and just, it kind of reminded me, this is, The Walking Dead at its best, where you get characters that you kind of think are, like, they're not going to kill this person now, and it's like they did. And not only did they kill, I mean, they killed the villain with 2 episodes to go. Right. And now there's like a new super villain that's taking over for them. So yeah, I mean, that very unexpected, and it was just a lot of fun. So I really enjoyed this episode a lot. And as much as the, of course, moments that happened, Carol, your leather jacket and the needle not going through, I'm looking in your direction. It's still, how could you not just come away going, man, that was a lot of fun. So what did you think?
I feel the same way. I feel like the stuff that was fun and exciting and really like absolutely, like you're saying, pulse pounding, movement, crazy things happening. That stuff was so great that, yes, there were definitely, I can't believe this is happening moments. I'm going to drive in a really small vehicle in a really small entryway, and I'm going to drive, at a moderate speed, and every single person is going to miss me with their gun. I mean,
right.
I understand maybe the guys at the Nest aren't nearly as trained in warfare as others, but anyway, so, but pushing those crazy things aside, yes, it was very action-packed, lots of plot action too, plot moving forward. And I agree with you. I think we knew that Janae, as a bad guy, was probably going to get some kind of comeuppance at some point. Mm-hmm. But I agree. I just did not call that it was going to happen as soon as it did. You sort of knew and even the Isabel thing, I thought that would be more of a
end of the
more
season.
Of a finale thing.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, they went into a different direction with that, and they did it a little sooner. And the Janae thing was very unexpected and such a great death. And we'll talk more details. But yeah, I felt like the Theo and Dee Dee stuff would have been more enjoyable in like a 12 episode season where you had time to sort of slow down and have like a contemplative like night. But in a quicker season like this, it's just a little bit more like, let's keep moving, let's do more action.
It's like you think we're gonna catch your breath, nope, you're wrong, we're moving, come on.
Like not a bad scene, not bad characters to introduce, not bad action or plot movement, but just moving at such a glacial pace, like and considering it was in the episode where there was lots of really great movement, and you pair it with that where it just sort of like slows down to a snail's pace, it was such a stark contrast from each other, those two different storylines. So that was kind of I don't know about including it in the same episode, but still, overall, all of the action, all of the crazy stuff we weren't expecting. Really, really great episode. Probably the best one of the season so far, I'd say, out of all the 4.
Yeah.
Groovy. Yeah. absolutely groovy. So yeah, all right. So moving on, let's jump right into our episode description for this week. And Steve, it is your birthday, so I'll allow you to go along and do this one as well.
Wow, you mean because it's my birthday, you're gonna let me do what we do every week?
Yes,
that's so cool.
That's the giver in me, really.
Wow, you are. It's spectacular. I gotta tell you. All right, well, thank you. So this week's episode is being brought to you by
Aggression. When you want your eyes to become pools of Stygian blackness. Aggression. When you want to run really, really fast without ever getting tired. Aggression. When you want all the blood vessels in your neck and face to turn black and pop out of your skin. Aggression. When your only desire is to rip someone to shreds in an orgy of blood-filled rage. Aggression. A fragrance for the next generation of ghoul in the zombie apocalypse. Aggression. From Marion Genet of Paris. Available at fine department stores everywhere. Possible side effects include swelling, extreme pain, rage, death, desire to consume human flesh, drowsiness. Did we mention the death?
Okay, so did we mention the death?
I think you mentioned the death.
Okay.
It's not a scent that I think I'd be interested in.
I don't know. I think the black, pool eyeball thing would look good on you, and also like the blood vessel with the black, running through your head and your neck. You could pull off that look.
They do say black is a slimming color, so my eyes would be pools of black blood, but they would probably look really small.
You would, you'd be like back to like your high school weight. It'd be
absolutely total slim down.
Oh boy.
Anyway.
All right. Well, and by the way, the actual, if there was a visual, like if this was a television commercial, that Johnny Depp would be the face man. So
yeah, absolutely, playing some random guitar with his vest and all the stuff, and it's wide open and.
And he'd be like, sitting in his Range Rover, and it would be like kind of raining yet sunny, one of those weird things. So yeah.
Listen, we all got to pay our mortgage. You know what I mean?
That's true. No, I'll got to pay Amber Heard somehow.
Yeah, we respect the game.
All right. So the episode in question, again, if you're just tuning in, is season 2, episode number 4 of The Walking Dead, Daryl Dixon, The Book of Carol. And the episode title is Le Paradis pour toi, which the English translation is Paradise for You, pal. So, and the episode description we have, and I have to admit, they outdid themselves this week.
Yes. They sure did.
It's like, wow, you guys were late for some event, because what we got is all hope feels lost as Genet begins an attack on the nest. That's it. That's all they said. So, and if that doesn't sum up everything that happened in this one, I mean, what else do you need?
Yeah. I mean, it's difficult because the choices are one end of the spectrum over the other, which is you can either grab the description from AMC or IMDb, which is usually a line or 2 lines, or you can get, the supplied longer description of the episode on Wikipedia, and it's like 6 paragraphs.
Yeah, so, it's way too long, right?
Yeah. No, there's no need to do that. Yeah.
I hear you. And it's funner this way because we can laugh at it, see?
Yes, and if we can't, that's the best part.
Right. Exactly.
The best part. Yes. All right. All right, so let's jump in first and let's review writers and director for this episode before we get started.
All right. We'll do that. And I have to say that our writers, and it's a pair of writers, and everybody should get used to seeing these names, because these are the writers we have for this episode next week's episode and the episode after that. So
Nice.
yeah, so these two guys, they finish off the season here with the next three. So, and the people I'm talking about are two of the executive producers of the show, and that's Jason Richman and David Zabel. And we've talked about both of them before because they both wrote some episodes of Daryl Dixon last season as well. So Jason Richman, he last season he wrote season 1.2 Alouetta with David Zabel. So they are a writing partnership that worked a lot on this show. And then he wrote 1.5 Du Amour with David Zabel. And then he wrote Coming Home, which is 1.6, but he wrote that one with another one of the executive producers, this gal named Laura Snow. And then, as I said, this season he wrote this episode. He's writing next episode, which is Voilà, c'est pour voir. And then
well done.
Thank you. And then 2.6, which is the season finale, which is Au revoir les enfants, which I believe means goodbye babies, but I'm not 100% on that. And the thing about episode the season finale that I saw was that they actually, the two guys, they wrote the teleplay of it, but the story is by this person, Laura Snow, who he wrote 1.6 with last year. So and then David Zabel, same thing. He wrote this episode, and he wrote 5 and 6 coming up. And in season 1, he wrote the first 2 episodes, L'âme perdue and Alouetta. And then he wrote Du Amour as well. So each of them have written 3 episodes of each season. So, awesome. And then our director is the same director we had last week. So it's this guy, Michael Slovis. And as I said last week, he wrote or he directed on the main show. He directed 3 episodes, 1 in season 6, 1 in season 7, and 1 in season 8. And then on The Ones Who Live, he directed 2 episodes, 1.3 and 1.4. And then he directed 2.3 of Book of Carol last week, which was La Invisible, and then this one. I kind of peeked ahead a little bit, and I did see that Nicotero is directing 2.6, which is not a shock.
Yeah, not surprising.
But I'm not sure who is directing next week's episode, but it is not Michael Slovis, so it will be somebody different. So, but that is our writer and our director.
Great. Well, I think we start off like literally where we left off in the last episode, but I like the way that they transitioned right to where we left off, which is, we went right back to the Janae scene with, all of the people who are now going to be, and I am air quotes here, volunteering for the cause.
That's right.
But the way that they transitioned was they started off by just showing Daryl in his little cell area, and they just lifted the camera up slightly to show the window, and you can see the lights far away with Janae's people like gathering. Because of that, slightly confused as to why they weren't ready, because they have people posted watching.
Yeah. See, there's another moment later on too where I'm like, shouldn't you be getting ready to fight the people that are showing up outside your door? Because you're right, you can see the headlights of all those vehicles in the distance. You'd have to think they heard the machine gun when they started, shooting, right? But yet they somehow catch the nest completely unprepared, and I also thought that was a little weird. And sort of like, really? No, they would totally see you guys coming, and you think they'd be ready. But whatever. Again, there's only 6 episodes. We got to move.
Right.
So,
and it stinks because it's like it made me go, they didn't see them, and yet I can see them plain as day. But as much as it made me go, huh? I still thought visually it looked really cool.
Oh yeah, it was.
To
It was
do
a
that
neat
pan
thing.
out of the window and then go all the way over to them
Mhm.
and pick up right where it left off with them, getting ready to shoot all of the, again, volunteers. I'm using air
Mhm.
quotes. And I thought it was great because there's nothing quite like having a cliffhanger, as it were, but like end in a cliffhangery way, like, oh, we're going to shoot you too, Carol, and then push her over with the people, and then boom, the episode's over.
Mhm.
I love when a show will pick up right where that moment left off.
Right. Right.
Because they recognize that no one wants to see anything else.
Right.
They
Yeah.
want to see the resolution of the thing that just ended the episode before. So I do really, really, really love and respect TV shows that do that. So
Well, just
good job.
in this universe, I mean, how many times have we seen on the main show or on Fear where there'll be a cliffhangery moment, and then like the next episode is like some freaking bottle episode about another
Yeah.
character where you're like, no, but what about the danger?
Yeah.
You
The
know, let's
most
keep it-
famous one is when Glenn fell off the dumpster with Nicholas,
Yeah.
and the famous dumpster scene happened. We didn't know what happened for a whole week because the next week was the Morgan and the cheesemaker bottle episode.
Right. Yeah. And where you're like, and everyone's watching is like, no one wants to see this.
Right. And at the time, I was like, it's a shame because this is actually like the stuff that they cover, that they talk about, and a show like Morgan's Journey were all really great things. And it was such a great contemplative episode, really shows how he learned. Nobody wanted to see it.
Right.
Not a single person wanted that episode to happen when it did. And that's a shame because it really was like, and John Carroll Lynch, who played Eastman, the cheesemaker, he's a great character actor. It was so great to have him. But it's like, I feel like that episode is a great episode and never got its due because of exactly that. They
Right.
didn't pick up right where the audience wanted them to pick back up from.
Mhm.
So yeah. Anyway, so Janae, true to her word, and you've got the great quote there where she just tells them, not in the head.
That's right. And my comment was, it's the aim for the head slogan.
Right. Don't aim for the head is
Right.
really, yeah. So
hopefully we can meet her, the actor, someday, and have her say, whatever you do not aim for the head.
and we could say, no, that is wrong. Yeah, so in that moment, they open fire, shoot all of the volunteers.
Mhm.
Carol, smartly, falls down with all the people and is pretending to be dead.
Well, she gets behind the big eat the stew off the floor guy.
Yeah, because I think he still had some kind of flak jackety. I don't think it was a bulletproof vest, but it was
No.
something very
Just a big thick uniform shirt.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So something that was a little more like for like SWAT team, like that kind of feel or whatever. Not gonna save him, but it's gonna make him, he's already a big dude and gonna make him a little bit thicker, so a
Mhm.
little bit harder for a bullet to make it through him to Carol.
Right.
She's not stupid.
Yeah.
So yeah, she does sort of just like sidle behind big dude. And then everyone's shot, they fall, she falls with them. But in that moment, did you have the moment where after that happens, you're like, okay, they're all gonna turn.
Oh, I know.
soon.
Yeah, right.
Like even yes, we know they're gonna employ the dart, right? Which is
Mhm.
gonna make them turn even quicker. But the possibility exists that they could, get started on one end of the people, and in the meantime, the person that is laying right next to her could just turn.
Ooh,
and-
lunch.
Yeah. I was
Yeah.
waiting for her to like take a second and like grab a little guts of the people next to her and just like slap it on her
Oh,
face.
Just
But-
try and come up with some defense. Yeah.
Yeah, but it moved too quickly for that to
Yeah.
even happen.
Well-
So she's laying there, she's contemplating, well shit, what am I going to do? What am I
Yeah.
doing next?
Yeah, literally, it's like I can't get up and get
Right.
away because they'll just shoot me. but I really can't stay here.
Right. This is the ultimate caught between a rock and a hard place.
Yes.
you know?
I mean, just okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So they do start going around with the dart gun, and they're being very, precise, shooting as they go along. You toot, 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 toot. And they get to, and when they're doing that, in my head, I'm like, how is she going to get out of this?
Right.
How is she going to get out of this? And in my head, I really had this a 3-second scenario when they were getting close to Carol. I was like, she's going to reach up and grab the gun from him. Because these are all scientists. They're not like the soldiers.
Right.
They're like the scientist guys. And sure, they can probably handle themselves to a degree. But to take them unawares, grab the gun, smash them in the face, that was the only way I saw her sort of getting out of that situation in the moment. But then when they shoot the dart and she's like, ping, and just like takes it right off of her leather jacket.
Yeah.
What do we feel are the probabilities of that?
Yeah. The girl should buy a lottery ticket, right? I mean, it's a pressurized dart gun,
right?
That everyone else there is all wearing similar kind of clothing as her, and those darts have absolutely no problem. Right. Penetrating the clothing and sticking them and injecting them with the solution, right? With the stuff. But with her, it hits her. I mean, and it doesn't even. I mean, it'd be one thing if she like had like a shoulder pad or something, but it didn't. It just like hit her in the arm and it didn't go through. I'm like, really? That's what we're going. But I mean, what else could they do? There's nothing else they could have come up with other than the guy missed her. But then why wouldn't he shoot her again? You know what I mean?
Right.
He had to shoot her and think, okay, she's good. Let's go to the next one. And yet at the same time, have it not where, I don't know. It was. Yeah. And then she like pulls the dart out and I'm like, but what if they come back and go, oh, we missed this one and shoot her again? You know what I mean?
I had that thought too. She pulls the dart out and I'm like, they're going to notice, oh, this one. Oh, that one doesn't have a dart in it. Let's do it again.
Yeah, right.
But then I was like, we've also seen how quickly once they get the dart, how quickly they reanimate. And I'm like, okay, now she's like super screwed because they're either going to notice and they're going to shoot her again, or they're going to start turning and she's now in a pile of
super walkers.
Yeah, super walkers, and they're gonna smell her right away.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, what is gonna happen here? So then the circumstances after where she like gets up and runs, and that was another like really moment, because I found it hard to believe that they didn't have more than one or two people guarding Kadron. Yes, he was like strapped to the back of the car, the back of the Jeep there. But they had one person in there as a driver, which she pulls out, right? Mm-hmm. And then that's it. They didn't really have anyone else. I mean, maybe one guard, if memory serves, but that's it. So she just like up and ran, and then pulls the guy out, and she's in the car right away. And I'm like, how did that happen?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I mean it's
again lottery. She got to play.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, the reason it happened is, as we pointed out. I mean, when your name is in the title of the show,
right,
you have a lot of plot armor, enough plot armor that no little needle is ever going to penetrate and stick you.
Yeah, it's not called the Book of Genet or the Book of Kadron.
Yes, know? I mean it's and I mean, just think about it logically. That the fact that there are none of the soldiers that are standing by Genet have their guns out ready to fire, right? Which you would think that once she got up and Genet's like, shoot her, right? And then they're all like, oh wait, let me get my gun out, and I have to cock it, and think about what they're doing. They just created like 30 like super ghouls. And it's like, what if they decide to eat you guys rather than chase after the dude?
In theory, they should, right?
Right, so it's like, okay, you're not going to be at all ready to take them out, any of them that get too close. And this is your imperious leader that is standing there right there. You're supposed to be guarding. But again, it's the plot armor. You just got to kind of go, okay. Yeah. So, yeah. It was laughable.
Yeah. And there are a few of those. But I did enjoy as soon as she starts driving. away. And then Kadron's like, faster.
Must go faster. I thought of Jurassic Park.
Yeah, exactly. It was like a combination of Jurassic Park and also because of the sort of the posture he was in, it felt a lot like Furiosa.
Yes.
Yeah, a Fury Road, not Furiosa. When, Tom Hardy is strapped to the front like his blood bag. Yeah.
Right. But the difference is he was on the front of the car, whereas Quadron is on the back. But yeah.
But he can see the impending doom.
Oh, yeah. Well, and he literally cannot move. So he's like, you got to go faster. Okay. Yeah. And then when she pulls up to the door, he's like, what are you waiting for? Come on, let's go. Come on, let's go. Yeah.
It's funny. Did you watch the featurette after?
Where he was like, they made my head too big.
He's like, I have a big head. My head is not that big though.
Yeah,
it was hilarious. And he was so like, he was like a kid in a candy store. It was like, oh my God, look at this dummy.
Oh,
it
yeah.
Like me. He was so tickled pink by it. It was great.
It was
really
so
great.
It was so. I always find this funny, but it was doubly funny in the little featurette because you see him and you see the gal who plays Janae, and they're not. Like he was on set, but she wasn't. Clearly this was after, she'd wrapped up filming and stuff. But just to see them and they're just like laughing and joking around and stuff. And it's just so weird because it's not, Quadron is so dead serious in the show. And she is, this evil mastermind, right, that we hate, right? Oh, I hate you, Shanae, and stuff. And then there they are and they're just like joking around like, it was so cool, we got to do all that. So I always get a kick out of that stuff when you see them.
Yeah, absolutely. It was so funny because before they shoot everybody, that's when they roll up with Kadron, and you can see him there. So you have a moment where like, oh, Kadron's part of this. And then they shoot everybody, and I'm like, why did they bring Kadron? And then you see them all running towards Kadron, and I'm like, oh, yes, I get it. He was the bait.
Yeah, he's what's going to lead them up to the nest.
The nest, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then, so how did you interpret? Was Carol just waiting to see if they would open the door for her? Or was Carol assuming they were going to blow the door? What do you think she was pausing for?
I think she's pausing because she didn't know where to go. Like she kind of like drove up there and she's like, oh, well, it's locked. It looks like they're closed.
Yeah.
And what do I do? Yeah, what do I do? Where do I go? And then, that's when they fired they called it a mortar. It looked like a cannon to me, but
yeah.
And so then of course, they get the 1 in a million lucky first shot and blow the door up, and then she's able to drive in, right? And again, complete and total Pearl Harbor element of surprise, right? I mean,
right.
The Nest people are like completely unaware.
Oh yeah. Which is still, like I said, I'm not sure how realistic that is. If they had come through the door and you saw them already like gathering and they're like, oh no, they blew the door already, like that would be a little more believable. But
yeah.
That they seemed like they were just like, oh, your explosion woke us up.
Maybe we should put a guard out there.
Yeah, perhaps we should have one walking around the edge like we already do.
No. Yeah, that was another one of my, of course, moments was that they fire that extremely primitive, like 18th century cannon in the dark, no less. It's not like it's broad daylight, and yet their first shot is a straight on center bullseye and completely annihilates the door so that Carol can drive through. And remember, like the dune buggy like just barely fits through that opening. It's not like it was a massive garage door or something, but yet when they blew it up completely, so there's no jagged pieces still attached to the sides to like kill her or anything.
Yeah.
Again, it was just very unbelievable. I'm just like, really? You're just gonna, basically you just rolled that thing up and like looked down the top of it and closed an eye and squinted and went, yeah, that's good. Let's fire it. And that's the result you got with the first shot. It's like, no, I don't think so. So that bothered me a little bit too. But again, like I said, I ain't got time for that.
Yeah, ain't nobody got time for that.
Yeah, it's just like, let's go.
Yeah. Meanwhile, on the inside, there is tragedy about to unfold because Isabel is about to get ye old knife to the belly.
Yes.
Which was, and we discussed, like, you knew that Isabel was not gonna make it, but like I said, I really didn't think it would happen so soon.
Yeah.
I really thought that, by showing, Chekhov's, drain tile cover or whatever that she grabbed, I thought that was our way of seeing, okay, she's going to be able to fight her way out of whatever and get away. But in fact, it was by using that, I think it made Losang angrier, and he lashed out like he did.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And hey, I'm pretty good at picking up the clues from the trailer last week, because remember, I had said when we were talking about it that I thought, based on what we saw, that she was going to slash it at Losang's face, because in the trailer they show him with the cut there, and I'm like, and of course that's what happens. And you're right. This was a real interesting episode for him, for Losang, because remember, he was preaching all of the, peace and love and kumbaya, and the Daryl teaching Laurent about weapons and things. That's not what we're all about here, and all this, and he uses the stick, right? He doesn't use a knife or a spear or a gun, because he's the religious guy, and killing is not his thing, and yet you get him a little bit angry, and his first thought is, did you just cut my beautiful face? Well, I'm gonna frickin' kill you. That was not like I'm just gonna slash your leg so you have like a cut and you're going to bleed a little bit. That was, I'm going to frickin' shiv you.
Yeah. It was
wound.
And I think that was also part of the surprising nature of it was such a moment of, like, you can tell that he had plans to do, like either torture Isabel into telling him about where Laurent was, or, doing something that was going to draw it out a little bit more.
Yeah.
I don't think he had intentions to just like off her right away.
No, I don't think that was the plan at all. He wanted her. He felt that of the two of them, she was the one that he could get to talk.
And I think too, I think he understands as well that if he wants Laurent to be found and also become a part of their group again, I don't think that killing the person or the people that are closest to him is the most effective way to encourage him to be like, yeah, come back with us.
Yeah. It's kind of hard, It's like, oh, Daryl and Isabel, they're out right now.
They went for a really long walk.
Yeah, they'll be back though. Don't you worry.
We're pretty sure. Sure they'll be back.
I will send the 4 fastest ships I have in my fleet, one in each direction, to look for them.
Exactly.
Okay?
Exactly.
So, but until the meantime, you just come with us. Yeah.
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
Right.
So I don't think that was his intention.
No.
Which they did a good job of telegraphing that and making it like, you can see he's got a moment of shock that he even did it,
Yeah. Did you? And it was great in the featurette when they talked to him about that scene, and he's like, I was reading the script and I'm like, ooh, what are they gonna do with my character? And then when I read it, I'm like, oh, cool. No, not me. It's just like, okay. But yeah, okay, when that scene starts though, that's after the Genèse people blow up the door and Carol drives through, right? and they're shooting at her in the inner courtyard, and then the ghouls are running up behind her. So all that's happened. And then we cut to this scene of him talking to her, and I'm like, wouldn't they have heard that? This massive explosion? And, and what kind of an alarm system do they have that literally it takes like 4 minutes from when that scene starts to when finally someone comes in and goes, there are like people blowing up the door out front, and then they
go check on this.
Yeah, I mean, so that I thought was weird. And it's almost like you should have had this scene before you did that scene. But again, this is a big scene too, right? And, like you said, they wanted to start with the action and not cut away from what happened to Carol.
Yeah.
But, anyway, I thought that was weird, a weird choice. And it didn't. It was again almost like an of course moment where I'm less like I'm not really buying this because you guys should know that there's something going on and not be having this discussion. But
I almost thought because they showed that scene after like the explosion stuff, the car stuff, whatever, the machine gunny stuff, the noise, as it were. I honestly thought that they were just picking up the scene, like say maybe 30 seconds or a minute before they blow the door.
Yeah.
And I thought that it was also possible that maybe that disturbance is what gets Isabel able to like sort of break free in that moment. And then she uses the little thing to like slash at her face and get out of there to defend herself. But it just didn't work out that way. It just, it really feels like they almost like they cut the episode incorrectly, like this was supposed to place before it, but
like when the episode when it started with them up there, I almost thought we would like hear the explosion again,
right?
Like they almost like they
from their perspective,
like they rewind time, so it's like this is actually happening a minute earlier, and without giving us the title, the super to say that, but yeah, that was weird. But I did like there was some great, I thought Isabel had some great dialogue in there where, he, of course, is trying to bring her back into the fold, and calling her sister and all this stuff. And he talks about, what Laurent's going to do. And, once they have him get bit and he survives. And remember, he talks about the whole history of, we heard about this kid that was born in the womb of a ghoul. And, we were waiting for him and all that stuff and everything. And what's great is that she is just literally telling him to go fork himself the whole time. Right. I mean, just not, it's like whatever you're trying is not working at all. But, he talks about, how they're going to do the test and it's going to be great. And we're going to be this super powerful group. And she says something like, what you're doing is not strength. It's desperate, misguided, and it's savage. And then his response is, well, that sounds like Daryl talking. And then she's like, no, it's me. And I really like that line where, and I think maybe at that point, that's where he thought about, we might have to kill her.
Yeah, because she's lost. Like he still thought he might, calls her sister, thinks he might still have a shred of the previous Isabel. And, you break them up a little bit, don't have Daryl in the same room with her. A lot of people feel like that makes some kind of change to how you would respond to stuff or whatever. But it's clear that he's been thinking that Daryl's the poor influence, but when in actuality, Isabel is feeling that same way as well. Yeah. And he can't have her around anymore.
Well, I mean, I think for her, clearly it's last episode when, they tried to kill them. And then when they finally get back in and interrupt the ceremony, they find out that they also killed Sylvie. Right. That I think was where the parting of the ways with her and the nest, where it's like, look, I don't know what you guys think you're doing, but I am not doing it.
Right.
So, but yeah. And so, again, then that's when, stuff happens and he kind of leans in close to her and she slashes him in the cheek. Looks like the cheek, right? The cheekbone.
Yeah.
And literally his reaction is, you cut me? Okay. And then he, picks up the knife and just, runs her in. And And even for this show, I'm like, that's gonna leave a mark. Where it's like I don't see her coming back from that. Unless Jenna Elfman shows up somehow, and with her one good hand, she's able to stitch her up. I mean, I don't see it. So and then of course that's when they come in and say, oh, by the way, there's some people at the door about the reaping or something, and they have to leave. And so they kind of just you knew it was mortal because they just left her there.
Yes, they did.
There's nobody watching over her. They didn't tie her back up. They just said, nah, just bleed on the floor. You know what I mean? So yeah, it did not look good. Which again, I was super surprised when he shanked her, just because, and not that like you said, I think we all expected her to go. Particularly after the we're going to go to Ohio and everything's going to be hunky-dory talk they had last week, because anyone that has a hope for the future on this show is not long to go. But I think we all thought it would be later.
Right.
And so that when he did that, I'm like, holy crap. Right. But again, she wasn't really, she was like mostly dead at that point, but she still had a little bit left in her. She
was slightly alive.
She was slightly alive, right? Which is that what, if you're mostly dead, that means you're slightly alive.
Right.
And but anyway, so that finally we get to the scene. I think that short of Rick and Michonne finding each other is the scene. I think a lot of us were wondering, what was it going to be?
Yeah. Yeah, and it was interesting to hear in the after episode thing that it was like, Norman sort of had an idea and then they talked it through and fleshed it out and it became sort of what they had.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we're given this scene where Daryl does what he did in the last episode, which is, I am going to stand still and plow through 15 people in about 30 seconds.
Yeah. I'm gonna get my Morning Star and my knife, and even these guys with guns are still gonna like run up to me.
Yeah.
So I can
they're
smack
stupid.
them. Yeah. Oh yeah. But I mean, it was weird because it was like some of them were soldiers and some of them were the ghouls. Like it was, I don't know. It was a very weird mix of adversaries. But you had a great note in there about the poor guy who was assigned to like guard Daryl.
Yeah.
How he's like, the scene opens and he's like running for his life because one of the super ghouls are chasing him, and he just barely unlocks the gate and gets on the inside and closes it, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, and you can tell he's like a young guy and he's just freaking out. Like,
he's never seen anything. He's probably never even really seen a ghoul.
Not up close.
And here's the thing you have to remember. Even if some of the young people at the nest, like this kid, if they have had training or have been out in the world and have had some experience with them, not these ones. These are the souped up ones. So they're pretty much, they're like 28 days later. They're like rage virus zombies.
Yeah.
So they know that, like, oh my God, we're all gonna die because, not only are these the undead, but we can't handle this. This is gonna kill us. This is gonna beat us. We're not gonna win. And it's all on his face. And he either hears something or just starts to turn because Daryl is behind him. Mm-hmm. And he turns and he looks at Daryl. And you can see that the keys are like in his hand or like dangling at his side. And Daryl just literally takes his arm and throws it in the air. And, because he's got the chain and he can't put his arm all the way up because of the chain. And it's basically like, if you unlock me, I will save your life.
Yes, it's like, you have one choice, kid. Yeah.
Yeah, and he chose wisely.
Oh, he did. We didn't see if he ultimately died, but yeah, he survived that moment. But I like the way that the director cut that scene, because the kid turns around and sees Daryl, and Daryl kind of has his head down, and then he looks up and sees that the kid's looking at him, and then he raises his hand, like you said, and then they like do this quick focus shift on the kid's side, and you see the ring of keys.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like wrist with a chain, keys right away. And you're like, oh, right. You know? And sure enough, the next scene is Daryl, and he's, coming up to the table where they left all of his stuff, and he's grabbing his weapons, and he, like you said, he just like wades into this sea of adversaries, and it's like a video game because he just mows them down.
Oh yeah, in true Daryl fashion.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And when he's finished with laying waste to the soldiers, it's a mixture too, because it's like it's soldiers it's nest people, it's soldiers from I would assume some of Janae's soldiers,
I thought so,
plus the rage zombie virus zombies. And then you get Carol at
the very she's like bringing up the rear. And he like stops and he looks, and you can tell he's like, okay, I'm clearly
seeing things.
Yeah, this can't be right, And then he kind of goes a little closer, and you see him. He's kind of doing that Daryl squint,
Yeah.
Where he's like, what, very Rick Grimesy, and sure enough, when it's finally her, then like he like runs up to her, and you get the hug, you get the reunion, right? It's like, aw, okay.
Yeah. It's. We both put it in like absolute caps, like this is the scene, like this is the reunion, this is the moment that and I gotta say, like, of course, it gives you the moment of like the feels. He's very emotional, but directly after this scene is when Carol brings him to Isabel.
Yeah. I was gonna say we did kind of skip over that before the Daryl scene. She bumps in. She saves Isabel, because Isabel's kind of like very slowly stumbling down the hallway, and like a super ghoul sees her and is like sprinting up to her, and literally Isabel's, you can see it. She's like, I'm done, because she can't defend herself at all. And then Carol guns him down, shoots him, right?
Yeah.
And then she kind of comes up and she's like, oh my God, are you stabbed? And are you okay? And then she kind of looks at the wound and gives her a piece of, clothing to kind of put some pressure on with it. And it's great because Isabel goes, who are you? And she's like, my name is Carol. And then you see Isabel like, holy crap.
Yeah, she had the original holy crap moment before Daryl got his holy crap moment. Right. But she's injured, so she's not even really able to fully. If she hadn't been injured, she probably would have been more vocal. But at that moment, she's like, am I losing all this blood? Am I hallucinating? She's kind of, how are you here? Like, she's very incredulous. Like, can't believe it's happening.
Yeah, how is this actually happening? Yeah. I feel like if she wasn't wounded and they met, she would have been like, wow, that's really weird, because my friend Daryl knows someone named Carol who's American. But yeah. So Carol kind of saves her, and like, again, at first I thought, oh, okay, they're going to save her because Carol gave her the basic first aid, which is usually enough in these shows.
Right.
Of like, well, just like, cover up the hole and put some pressure on it and it'll be fine. And so then, she leaves, and then we have the Daryl reunion, and then you're right. Then they she takes Daryl back to Isabel, and then we get Isabel's farewell sequence, right? And I know you wrote down some stuff about being all girly and crying and whatnot. So you go ahead and talk about that.
Well, I just thought that that we had this big buildup with Daryl and Carol, and they have their scene, and then directly after, they just took the time, and it's this really heartfelt moment. It's so touching. It's so, you can tell at first he's doing like the thing where it's like, put this here, press real hard, like you're gonna be okay.
That's
like,
right. You're gonna. We got to get her out of here. We got to, and she's just like, Daryl,
it's over. It's over. But she calms him down in that moment. And then she even says, that I think just the moment, because she's got two great lines. One where she's like, take care of Laurent, and, tell him how important he is to me, what he means to me. and that'll always be with him.
Mhm.
And then that was like, oh God. And then when you can see she's getting to that, like, she's almost done, she's almost dead.
Mhm.
And she sort of does that thing where she loses focus and she's looking off into the distance. And when she does, she says she can see the fireflies. And see the fireflies,
beautiful.
and they're beautiful. And I was like, okay, this is so sad,
Mhm.
so sad. And he's not saying a word. He's just like, he's got
Daryling.
his hand on her. It's just Daryling. He's letting it happen. And then as the moment ends and the camera pulls away in that final, and you know that she's gone, that she's passed, and
Mhm.
he's just having his moment. And then from, as the camera backs up and you get all three of them together, Carol reaches in and she pulls out a knife and just moves forward with the knife in her hand. So you don't know if she does it or if she gives it to Daryl to do. But clearly she's gone because they have to finish her off.
Right.
And I just thought that it was surprising that this scene, to me, was much more emotional than the Carol and Daryl scene. And they were literally right next to each other, the scenes.
I know.
And I was like, interesting.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Poor Isabel.
I think okay. I think we all know that I'm cold and dead inside, right?
Yes.
But I'm not immune. It was certainly touching, but I have to say that I am, and I think you are in this group too, people of a certain age, that when she said, "I see the fireflies," I half expected her to have her last words be to look Daryl in the eye and say, "Stay golden, Pony Daryl, stay golden." And this goes back to everybody in this age group that had to read S.E. Hinton's The Outsiders in high school, right? Where this was way too much a movie death, right? Where, I mean, she gets literally the deathbed scene, right? Where her last words are to the man she loves, and getting to, it's just like, really. So it just seemed, again, I'm not completely immune to it. And there was definitely a little touching of my cold dead heart, a little bit, but I thought it was way too much.
Oh, okay.
And so, yeah. And I also, the first time I watched it, I thought, I'm thinking to myself, Daryl, you're going to like put her down, right? Like, the knife through the ear or something, right? You're not just going to leave her to get back up again, right? And so then the second time, right, that's when you see Carol kind of like unsheath the knife. And it's very subtle, but it's there. And I'm like, okay, well, at least they did that. So, and also I would like to point out that at this moment, this is where Losang, basically broke zombie show rule number 1. Which is basically never kill Daryl's girlfriend.
Right.
I mean, this
That's
is now
going to come back to haunt him. He just doesn't know it yet.
Yeah, it really is. I think, if Daryl wasn't going to like kill him before, now it's like, not only is he going to kill him, but he's going to like painfully kill him. Right.
Yeah.
So oh yeah, lots. I mean, it's like, like in like those Steven Seagal movies when he grabs the person's arm and like bends their elbow the other way, like that kind of pain, where it's just going to be very, very tortury and stuff. So yeah. But Losang's got it coming because he broke rule number 1, which is never kill Daryl's girlfriend. So
it's true. It is.
So anyway, so they get out of the nest then, and then I think, doesn't it cut in the next scene? They're like walking, and it's like the next morning. No, I think they go to the hiding place.
The little
first.
Hideout, yeah.
Yeah,
but everything moves so quickly. Like as soon as they are clear of the nest and they're walking, you can see that Daryl's emotions are in the walking. He's like, we got to go. We got to keep going. We got to get to Laurent. We got to find him.
Yep.
And everything that goes from there on out, it takes a little bit for him to stop for a second and, take a breath. Almost like, it feels like almost like a day for him to sort of stop. So they're leaving the nest, and it came to my, when they get to the hideout place where Laurent and Falou were waiting, up until very recently, I had this moment where I was like, Carol is a really good friend because she flew on a plane to come and find him. And his first instinct is like, okay, we got to go. Where are we going? Who is the boy? She's like trying to like find out like, where are we going? What are we doing? Who is this boy? Where are we going to? Does Isabel have anything to do with it? Like, what's the story? What's the plan? And he's being Daryl and is just like, we got to go. We got to go. We got to go. And that's it. And so that just shows what a good friend Carol is, that she's in a foreign land and she doesn't know where she's going or what she's doing, but she just follows Daryl because she's like, okay, it's important to him. We're going. I don't know what it is, but
I don't know what we're doing.
I guess we'll find out when we get there.
Daryl's back to communicating with grunts.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
Yeah. Well, you really get the sense in this sequence that, Daryl basically is keep moving because if he stops, he will think about what just happened.
Yeah.
And so it's just his way of dealing with it of like, no, I can't talk about this. I can't think about this because there is stuff I got to do. Okay.
Yeah. No time to talk. No time to think. I have things to do.
Yeah.
Places to go. People to see.
And I think like when they get to the hiding place and they're not there and he kind of is freaking a little bit and then he finds the Rubik's Cube. I think Carol at one point even says like, slow down.
Right.
Let's just talk about this. What are we doing? And he's just like, no, we gotta go. We gotta go.
Yeah.
Dog, we gotta go. So yeah. And so then they literally are like out like looking for tracks and stuff.
Yeah.
Because Daryl is like the super tracker guy and can figure out where they went. And so they are like on the trail of Falou and Laurent. And again, this is another thing that I always dislike in these movies or series where, literally a character is told, okay, you know what? Stay here. No matter what happens, stay here. Do not move. Do not leave. Stay here because I'm going to come back here and get you. And then we're going to go. And then invariably when they come back there, the person has left. And it's like you had one job. Yeah. And that was to stay there, but they didn't. And again, I'm sure we're going to see why, right? Something happened. Somebody came up. It was some of Janae's men. It was some ghouls, something, but it always annoys the crap out of me when it's like, Falou, why didn't you not just stay there? So anyway.
Yeah. And he didn't. He should have, and he didn't.
Right. It's like, okay. And then particularly when you get to the Theo and Dee Dee thing where it's like, they showed up and then they left again, but it's like they weren't being pursued. They weren't injured. They were, you know what I mean? They just like walked over there. It's just like, why did you do that? So yeah, it's annoying.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, there were some nice moments when they were walking along and making their way to Carol and Dee Dee, Theo and Dee Dee. Carol's got her couple of little moments there. You put a couple of quotes there that I thought were really funny.
Well, they're walking down this like dirt road, right? And they're in the French countryside, and Carol like is looking around. And she's like, "Well, one thing's for sure, we're not in Ohio anymore," which I thought was a great line. And then Daryl goes, "Oh," he comes up with this French word, right? And
the dépaysant or whatever.
Yeah, and he's like, it means like we're a place of change or whatever it meant. And she just starts laughing, and he's like, "What?" And then she doesn't say. He's like, "What?" And then she's like, "What? Just you speaking French? Me and you here? This is all crazy." And then he's like, "No, it's not. It's just stupid." And she's like, "It's crazy."
It's funny, too, because it's like in that moment, it's Carol saying that to Daryl. But there's a moment of like a little bit of Melissa there saying, we used to be in like the hot and sweaty Atlanta. Now we're walking through the French countryside.
Right.
This is weird, right?
This is very weird, right? Yeah. I also thought it was very interesting that, and we get a little confirmation a little bit later in the episode, definite, but it becomes very clear from this moment on that Carol does not know about Rick and Michonne coming back.
Which is interesting. I heard somebody else online say, do you think that she lied in that moment?
No, I don't. First of all, I think it was poor writing, because like when I first saw the episode, when these scenes happen where they're not in imminent danger and they're just sort of walking and talking, that's when it would have come up, where she'd be like, oh my God, by the way,
yeah,
Rick's back. Holy crap. More reason for us to get the hell out of here, get back to the plane and go. And she doesn't. And then a little bit later on, and I thought this was very, again, like, of course, Daryl remembers a snippet of a radio conversation from like a year and a half ago when he goes, by the way, what did you mean when you said somebody came back? Right.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, no, what I meant was like the PTSD came back or whatever. It was lame. It was lame writing. And it basically tells me that last season, that whole thing was just a tease to get us to want to watch, because we're like, what did she mean? Who came back? Could it have been all the stuff we talked about, right? And it turns out it was nothing. So yeah, I mean, maybe we'll find out she's lying, but no, I just think it was just icky writing, and yeah, I did not approve of that message at all. So
do you think it's at all possible? You're gonna say no, okay. But do you think it's at all possible that she read the situation and saw how distraught he was and decided not to tell him the full thing? And she only, when she was prompted, came up with like this little excuse or whatever.
The white lie.
Yeah. Do you think that's possible? Because she was in this sort of like going along for the ride mode. And I appreciate what you're saying, that this could just be fans being fans and they did some poor writing and to string us along and it worked. Yeah. And what have you. But what do you think? Is it possible?
Well, I mean, I look, anything's possible, right? I mean, you never know, particularly with this show, where a lot of the norms of television are not necessarily followed because, people can die at any moment and so on. But I mean, think about it. Why would she not tell him? That's good news. That would lift his spirits. Yeah. Because again, I mean, we don't know what condition Ash and the plane are in right now, but she has a way out of there waiting for them. You know True. What I mean? So it's like, hey, I know like your like future ex-wife just died like 10 minutes ago, and that's really sad. And the kid your son that you've adopted has been missing, and that's sad. But here's some news that is not sad, and that is Rick and Michonne are back and they're fine. You know what I mean? So you would think that would be like a good way to raise his spirit and get him more on board with screw this, I'm gonna live plan, right?
So I can see that. I mean, obviously, Occam's razor. What's the most probability? The higher probability is definitely that they just muffed the line. They put it in there. They didn't expect it to blow up the way it did, or they did, and they didn't have a good enough explanation to get their asses out of it. Or
maybe it changed. Maybe when they wrote the line, it originally was going to be, that either Dwight and Sherry came back, or Morgan came back, or Rick and Michonne came back, and then somewhere between now and then, the Angela Kangs and Gail Ann Hurds and Scott and Gimples of the world changed their mind and said, no, we don't want to do that. Right. So they pivoted and went a different way. It could be a whole bunch of things. My initial reaction is like, guys, you already have a fan base. You don't have to do this.
Don't have to string us along.
Yeah. So that was my reaction to it. And again, I also, like I said, it's just like, really, Daryl's going to remember this like garbled radio transmission from a year ago and be like, what did you mean by that? Like that's the question you're going to ask her at this point. But yeah. But again, still, I did love this was like the moment where like it was the most relaxed for the two of them.
True.
And it was fun to see them together, you know, and how they just sort of very easily slid back into the banter. And and of course, you know, very quickly you see that they are able to, you know, kind of run a con and pick up on each other, because when they get to Theo and Dee Dee, they look at her and they're like, "Oh, Sister Isabel." And she's like, "Yeah, that's
Absolutely.
me. I'm Sister Isabel." And Daryl's like, "That's her." You know what I mean? So I mean, he was right there with her, and you know, so again, it was like it didn't take long for them to just pick up right where they left off, and that was fun to see.
So speaking of, now that we've sort of broached it, the Theo and Dee Dee, you know, they find that location. They are introduced to Theo and Dee Dee. They learn that Laurent and Falou passed through, left information, yada, yada. So there's a lot of stuff that happens while they're at Theo and Dee Dee's. There's some, you know, there's some plot stuff. There's some emotional stuff happening. And then eventually, you know, the plot device that, you know, keeps the episode moving along. But overall, like, what did you think of the Theo and Dee Dee stuff? I did not trust them from the get-go.
Oh, no, again,
this is way too easy.
Right. Again, what do we always say? What do we always say, particularly now, 12 years after the end, right?
There are no nice people left.
And anybody you meet on the road, ultimately, they want to kill you and take your stuff. I mean, that's just the way. So as soon as they were there and they were like, "Oh, sit down and have breakfast," and they're smiling, and they're just like, okay, nobody is this nice, right? You know, it's like you're just waiting for Sinead to come out of some closet and be like, "Gotcha." And then particularly when Theo like is talking to Daryl, I think it's when they're out looking at the cars to see if one of them are going to run. And Theo's like, "Well, you know, back in the day, you know, my family like sold carrots to the Germans in World War I. And then they sold carrots to the Nazis in the Second War. And after that, they sold carrots to the Americans. And, you know, armies come and go, but our family's always here." I'm like, oh, my God, these people are going to rat you out.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's just like he is telling you that he will turn you in at the drop of a hat, right? I mean, clearly survival is number one for this guy, and screw everybody else around. So that I thought was a huge red flag that Daryl just kind of went, "Well, this car could work," you know? But I mean, I love the characters. I particularly love Dee Dee. She was great, right? You know, strong and defiant, and, you know, certainly had the moral high ground on everybody in that freaking house.
Oh, for sure.
You know,
for sure.
But
all the way through the end. You know?
Yeah. Oh, to the very. But again, when you first saw them again, what initially when they met them, what were you like? What were you like? Run for your lives, or were you like, "Oh, this will work out"?
Well, first of all, think about it too. They're in a home, like you could see when they were first entering that it's pretty pristine up top. And they are using like the downstairs quarters so that they're not, you know, so that lights aren't visible from the street, yada, yada. And I get that. Smart. But the rest of the house being immaculate seemed very disingenuous. I'm like, how is it that no one has, you know, raided that house for things or whatever? Like, we're far into the apocalypse.
Yeah, right.
You know, and for there to be actual like furniture and things and goods, because at this point there's no money, so there's got to be some kind of barter system. You know, I'll give you this beautiful desk. I know you're a writer. Can you give me like 10 pounds of potatoes or whatever?
Yeah, right.
And so immediately, as soon as you see that the house up above is pristine, I'm like, what is going on here? That is a red flag. It's a big red flag to me for something to be untouched. So yeah. I was nervous from the get-go because I'm like, it's too good to be true. Yeah. And I don't like for there to be too good to be true stuff. And here's the thing. Even though I thought it was too good to be true, there was a part of me that was like, well, if it's one thing this show has done, they have like done the thing where they went against expectations a bunch of different times.
Right.
Mostly, not so far this year, but in the first season, they did a lot of stuff where it was like, you'd expect them to go in this direction and they didn't.
Yeah.
And a lot of that was people they ran into,
Mm-hmm.
the group of kids. It was tense at first, but it turned out okay.
Yeah.
Falu's group, they were good, and even though the dude who ran the nightclub was that was just circumstantial because of his relationship with Isabel. Ultimately, everybody that was there, they were just there to do business. They were normal. Nobody was out to like kill anyone, really. I'm just saying, like, there were lots of different occurrences where they came across people, and on the regular series, it would be antagonistic and right off the bat. And in this case, I was like, well, they have been doing a lot of like, flip your expectations in this series. So it's possible. It's certainly possible that they could turn out to be okay. And the longer they were with them, the more I was like, well, maybe. But there was just something about them that I couldn't put my finger on. But they were just, this is so I have no soul and I'm cold and dead inside.
Yeah.
They were too nice.
They were too. You're right. And as much as like when Theo told the carrot story, where I'm like, clearly they're gonna rat you out. The fact that they, clearly Falu and Laurent were there, and these people were kind of like, part of the Underground Railroad or whatever, right? Where it's like, they spent the night here, then they moved on, and they knew about Daryl, and they knew about Isabel. You know what I mean? They were saying all the right stuff to them that I'm like, well, okay, maybe they're not, but yeah, it the longer that they stayed there, the more I was just like, oh, this is gonna end badly. It's sort of like, you guys should have left. You guys should have left right away.
Yeah.
Spent the night and then left the next morning. And again, I get it. They wanted a car and all that. And so that took time. And, Theo had to go put on his walking boots.
Yeah, hilarious.
Which was a very funny scene. And when Daryl's like pushing him in the wheelbarrow and he's just like friggin' walking boots,
Yeah, no kidding. That was great.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I was frustrated too, because we had you made a note about it too. They had another random barn PTSD moment with Carol. And I don't know how real they feel to me. I don't know how, because we talked about this, because, PTSD is real, and having bad memories associated with like a place or a thing. But Carol's been around and near many barns since then,
right?
And we haven't seen this reaction from her, so I don't know. Well, I don't know how honest it feels to me.
I mean, think about it. Think about like the time jump they had when she was with the king, with Ezekiel. I mean, that was some very calm, not a lot of danger time for her, like years. And this didn't come up then.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, and you're right. And again, PTSD, it's a weird thing, right? The brain is a weird thing, and we don't really understand how lots of stuff happens. And you never know. People freak out about stuff that out of nowhere. So it is not completely unreasonable, but I think for the television show and knowing Carol the way we know her, it seems unreasonable.
Yeah, it feels, I don't think it's an unrealistic thing that Carol could be going through, but I question it happening now.
Right. Yeah.
It feels more like a plot device than something honest, Yeah. And that's a shame, because if this was something that was recurring or whatever, because it's a shame that it feels like a plot device, because the moment she has with Dee Dee afterwards felt very genuine.
Yeah.
Dee Dee was trying to comfort her, and she even said so. She says, I got through it, you will too. So you just get a little glimpse into the fact that, they were talking about how, kids grew up and moved away. Well, she had a daughter, and her daughter or her son, whatever, she lost her child, probably because of the apocalypse. And she was commiserating with Carol, and it really was a beautiful little moment there. But it's just a shame because like the instance that got us into that moment doesn't feel true.
Yeah, you're right.
To me.
Yeah, I agree. I was right there with you. That it just seems very convenient that this stuff is happening now.
Yeah.
So you're particularly because the barn happened in season 2, and so you had 9-10 years of the main show where they could have written this in for her,
right?
And they didn't. Pretty much once her her daughter was dead, they never talked about her again. Very rarely did she come up, but you know what I mean? It was not like I'm still thinking about her kind of a storyline with her, right? That's why I think it feels kind of tacked on here, where it's like, really now suddenly you're having all these. Okay. So.
And I could see if they tried to tie it to her relationship with Daryl is so inextricably linked to that moment of pain. Like her beginnings of her friendship and him caring about Carol as a person it's so connected with that moment to be the beginning of it. Mm-hmm. Could you make a case for it's coming back up because she's evaluating how close she is to Daryl, how far she would go to get to him, yada, yada, because those moments are together, could that have helped trigger it along? I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm just trying to explain it to a degree.
Sure.
Yeah. I could be wrong and just be making excuses.
Yeah. Again, it's a plot device that they went with this year, and it certainly allowed them to do a real cool visual flashbacky thing. Mm-hmm. But again, is it going to happen every time she goes near like a barn-like opening? It's happened twice so far. Clearly, she's walked through a lot of barn-like openings and mm-hmm. in just on this show. And it doesn't happen every so again. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll have to see where they're gonna go with it, if anywhere.
Yeah. I wonder if there will be like a Chekhov's gun moment where it's leading to her having like some reaction like that again, and it's tied into maybe there's some big barn where they're hiding the plane and they're trying to get out, and mm-hmm. she freezes up or so, you know what I mean? Maybe they're starting to do that earlier to connect the dots to an arc they're going to have in the finale. Who knows?
Yeah.
But we haven't seen it yet, so we don't know. And right now it doesn't feel earned.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
I did like the kind of this idea that where Theo and Dee Dee are is a neighborhood where there are like all the young people are gone, mm-hmm. right? They all either died in the apocalypse or they left, and all that's left are these old people. And I like the idea that they're too old to want to bury people who die because it's too much work, So they just they pin them in their yards.
Yeah, they leave them out to pasture, to graze almost.
Yeah,
which is kind of funny.
It's what I really liked about it was it's crazy, but it's not totally batshit crazy, right? There's a certain sense to it where Theo's look, we don't have the energy to dig freaking graves for all these people. Right. I'm 80, It's just what are you talking about? So I appreciate it because it's yes, this makes sense. It's if you're not going to put them down, right? Mm-hmm. If you're not going to drive a knife through their head, which again, do they have the strength to do that? I don't know. This makes sense that you would do that, where it's not, it's crazy, but it's not like Princess doing the tableau crazy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I enjoyed that little bit where they're walking down, he's pushing the wheelbarrow down the street, right? And Theo's like, oh, there's so-and-so. She was a dentist, and she's the reason I still have all my teeth. And, oh, there's the guy. He was a baker, and he never really talked much. He makes more noise now growling than he ever did when he was alive. Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah, that I thought was a lot of fun. And then when they go to the guy who's alive to like take parts out of his car, and he is like complete dementia man, because he's like, oh yeah, America, like my brother and his wife live in Florida. It's great, and Carol kind of like, there's like this uncomfortable moment where Daryl's not saying anything, and Carol just goes, Florida is very nice.
It was so funny because he was totally doing that thing where, you go, if you went to some other place, if you went to a convention in LA and someone's like, oh, my cousin lives in Chicago. Do you know him? Yeah. It's that same idea. But they were like, they used to stay at the Fontainebleau. Have you ever? And they're
5-star. You can reference their name, and they're like, uh-huh. But then the guy's like, make sure you bring all this stuff back because I need to go to work tomorrow. And that's when Theo's like, yeah, he like is completely gone, so don't worry about it. Yeah, I enjoyed the way they populated that like little street or neighborhood or whatever it was. I thought that was kind of fun, and it was a different, again, something we haven't seen really before. Of, well, okay, this is, these people were left behind by the younger people, and they managed to survive. That's kind of cool. So I like that. I thought that was fun. Yeah,
it was like its own little community, and they sort of tend to it almost like a garden, and make sure that they're safe. They're all behind fences and whatever.
Or chained or whatever. Yeah. So anyway, so Daryl and Carol are going to leave, and they're packing up the car, and then Theo is like, oh, we're making these like truffle eggs. It's a delicacy. You got to stay for breakfast. So they're like, Daryl's like, well, okay, we'll eat real quick, and as soon as I'm like, nope, that was a mistake.
Yeah.
That you should have just left. So they go in, and then of course, Janae and a couple Jeeps full of her guys drive in. And I certainly got the sense, and I would ask you this, but I got the sense that Theo is the one who ratted him out, and Dee Dee was really not aware of it.
Oh, God, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he made a deal of some kind. When it happened is not clear, like how that happened.
Yeah, how did he get out and let them know that they were there? I don't know, but correct. He did. Yeah.
But however it happened, it was he that did it, and Dee Dee had no involvement in it. And at least that's how I took it to be. And for her to have died in the long run is like, that was his. That's karma. That's why Carol and Daryl didn't do anything to him, because that was his punishment.
That was his punishment. Yeah. I loved it though, because like the cars pull up, and then Theo comes in with the pump shotgun to kind of like get the drop on them, and it's great because Dee Dee literally gets up, walks over, and like pulls the gun out of his hand, like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Just like, well, go sit down, and immediately is like, gives it to Daryl, and like, you guys go hide, and so on, and but anyway, it sets up that great kind of au revoir for Mary and Janae, which again, completely unexpected.
Absolutely. And not only was it unexpected, but it's like from beginning to end, the whole death scene was just
oh my God,
so well scripted and paced and acted, and just it was just wonderful. The shooting of the dart, it was perfectly placed in between her shoulder blades. She could not get to it.
Couldn't get it. Yep.
And her she starts to panic because she can't reach it because she knows what's going to happen. And she knows she's got like 10 seconds tops.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe if she lucky. And just that moment she's reaching, she's like really freaking out. You can see it in her face. And she's like turning around and trying to. And meanwhile, Daryl and Carol are both just like sitting there watching like, uh-huh.
Uh-huh. Let's see what's going to happen.
Let this play out. Because to be fair, we've seen that dart shot at those that were already dead.
Right.
This is the first time we've seen it used on someone who was already alive.
Yes.
And so that's a very disgusting way to see how it all like, oh. So she's reaching, she can't get to it. And to me, the best part, I mean, yes, the gore was great too, don't get me wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But the best part of that whole death scene was when she turns and sees herself in the mirror. It was amazing. It's the only time, to my knowledge, in the Walking Dead universe, in any show, in any moment, where anyone has been able to actually watch themselves turn. And she did. She was able to watch it. She saw it happening. She saw the black veins creeping up her neck. And then all of a sudden her eyes started to turn black. And
then pop.
Yeah, and then she fell to the floor, and then we got the rest of this, and it was gross and awesome and satisfying on such a disgusting level.
Yep. But you notice that she didn't turn into a ghoul.
No.
Which I thought was interesting. So you've got to
assume that it must do something where it like
destroys the brain.
Yeah, it must explode the brain somehow because I mean that would explain all of the like the pressure and the
Well, I mean, like her eyeballs like popped, like they swelled up and they popped, and then she had fluid coming out of her nose and her mouth and her ears. So yeah, I mean, clearly her brain, something that was going on there that was pushing against. So that's what I took from it, was that if you inject that stuff into a living person, it kills them, but it kills them by their brain swells up and pops.
Yeah.
So.
I think that another layer that I just thought of is, in that moment, Daryl and Carol are sort of sitting back and allowing the moment to, play out.
Sure.
But also keep in mind, like, if Carol wasn't wearing a super thick, very, very protective leather jacket, that would have been her. Because she was the only one in that group that was still alive when they got shot.
Yeah, that we know of, yeah.
Yeah. Gross. It was great though.
It was.
And the featurette was just wonderful. I mean, I know I've mentioned it like 3 times, folks, but on the app or the website, wherever you can watch on AMC on the web, they've got that featurette they put on the end, and it's the detail that they show when Nicotero does this. It's just incredible. It's so well done.
It was just funny because they're talking to him and he's like, we thought about this and we decided I got the sense it was something they added after they had wrapped principal photography, because they called her up and she was like back with her husband and her kids, and they're like, Greg Nicotero's like, can you like measure like from your eye to your mouth with a tape measure and tell me what it is? And so her husband is like taking pictures of her with a ruler or a tape measure up, measuring her teeth
and her mouth open and everything.
Because they're trying to build like a life size, a replica of her head for this effect, right? And like she's telling the story, she's like, my kids are walking in and looking at me like, what are you doing? And so anyway, and when they filmed the scene, they didn't have the dummy. They just they filmed her with some of the makeup of the veiny stuff and probably the contact lenses for her eyes. And then they cut from it and they're like, we'll shoot the rest later,
Yeah.
And so she had no idea. And so then when she finally saw it, she was like blown away by it. And she called up Nicotero and basically said, so what are you going to do with that dummy of me, when you're done? And then they cuts to Nicotero and he's like, I don't know, like it might end up at your house. I don't know. And then sure enough, they have a picture of her standing next to the head with all the eyes popped and everything, and she's smiling at this like, this is so cool, So yeah, I that featurette was great.
I love it. It's great because, like you were saying, like it shows like the actors that play Cadron and Janae in these moments just absolutely giddy at the idea of these dummies that they both had that were made of themselves, and it's just their reaction is just so adorable.
Oh yeah,
it really is. It really is.
And then
because you wonder when people sign on for stuff like this, like what do you do if you're like, I'm a serious actor, this is a very dramatic scene, I really like the plot and the story here, and it's great character development, but there are zombies involved and I'm not a horror fan. And so you wonder about that. Like, do they get sort of, they get dragged along? Like, it is what it is. A job's a job.
Yeah.
But to see them be so interested in it is just, it's really cute to see.
Yeah. You have to assume that somewhere in their performing background, most likely on the stage, they've done something with stage blood. Something where someone gets stabbed or, on stage. So they've dealt with the makeup effects on a very, very limited level, right? Not feature film horror movie quality, but it's something they're at least familiar with. So it's not completely like, I am only a serious actor. Well, no, if you were doing any Shakespeare, there's a really great chance you had to spit up blood and stuff, so
yeah.
But you're right, you wonder, like, when what I've always heard about like being on the set for horror movies is that they're fun, that everyone has a good time, particularly when they're doing the effects, because that's when they take out all the fun stuff. And now they've got the buckets of blood and the hoses and the syringes and the actors getting wired up with the squibs or whatever, and it's you're back to being like 10 and just playing around and having fun, and clearly those two actors were totally into it and having a ball.
Oh yeah. Which is you love to see it. You love to see them enjoying the role, enjoying the it's kind of like the camaraderie of it too. I mean, and think about all the times people have died and become ghouls.
Yeah.
They're always like, oh, I get to wear the zombie makeup. It's so exciting. You know what I mean?
Sylvie, the actor plays Sylvie, she was so excited. Remember when they were talking, like in the featurette for that one, they're like, it's always like a real, like the worst part of this job, this is like a producer or a showrunner, where they're like, when you have to tell an actor that their character's going to die. And literally when they told Sylvie, she's like, cool, do I get to be a ghoul? Yeah. So yeah, it was real interesting when they're just like, this is fun, Yeah. And also the other thing too about that featurette is they talked to Isabel, and she was like talking about the scene with Carol, and she's like, for a whole year, all I heard from Norman was how great Melissa was, and she's great to work with, and she's a wonderful person, and I was super excited. She's like, I finally get to do a scene with her, and I'm like, this is great. Then I'm like, oh, but then I die.
Yeah.
Just like, damn it, So, but anyway, she had a good sense of humor about it, like figures, like that's my luck, But yeah, that was a real fun featurette. They did a lot of fun stuff with the dummies with the big heads and whatnot.
Yeah. So they bury Dee. Janae, she's gone.
Yeah.
They find out that Dee Dee has been shot. They bury Dee Dee. They don't say a word to Theo. They basically like pat the top of the dirt, put the shovel in the ground, turn their backs on Theo, and walk away, which I thought that was great. Like a really great way to sort of leave that storyline. Like, how dare you?
Yeah, well, then, like you said, he's in his own private hell. Yeah,
absolutely. And then we transition to the nest again, and we get what you and I have both labeled kind of similarly. You get Lo Sang, and you get Sabine, who was Janae's second in command. They report that Janae is dead.
Yeah.
And from there, Lo Sang pretty much says everyone is forgiven and we all need to come together. I mean,
Let's
he
get the boy.
practically led them in a kumbaya and
Oh,
let's
yeah.
hold hands, let's pray on it, blah, blah, blah. And it's so funny when he said all is forgiven, they showed some of the faces of the people that were like residents of the nest, and they're kind of looking around like they are forgiven. Like, what?
Really? But they killed like half the people here.
Right. So I'm curious to see what kind of dissent is going to happen within the ranks there. But you and I both had the same idea where it's like, okay, they take bad people from group number 1 and they're going to unite them with the bad people group number 2. And how is this going to work out? It looks promising. Not.
Yeah. Said nobody ever.
Yeah.
I had the same thing. I had like 2 bad groups make a good group, right? Hello? Yeah.
Hello.
But
is this thing on?
What I thought was a really nice touch though was Sabine comes in and Lo Sang and his number 2 are like chained up in the Daryl Dixon shower stalls, right? Where Daryl and Isabel were. So they're prisoners. Yep. And Sabine says, Janae's dead, and then kind of points out, she was weak. She wasn't the leader we need, and but they cut to Lo Sang, and he kind of has a little, almost like a little soliloquy where he's like, wait a minute, she wanted to stop Laurent and she's dead. So that means that God is, intervened. It just proves my crazy ass theory that clearly Laurent is the chosen one, right? And it just, I thought it was really fun because it just expands on his hubris of like, clearly he now fully believes that, it's his destiny to save Laurent and prove that he's this golden child and all the crazy things they want to do. And now he has all of the firepower of Janae's group to help him do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was pretty great ending. And again, it's like 5 minutes after Janae just did the Raiders of the Lost Ark death. So as someone who's watching this, you're like, what the hell are they going to do?
Yeah.
What is that the end of the show? And then you're like, oh no, it's going to be even worse. Like you would think killing Janae would be like a good thing to help them out. And it's like, actually, this is like probably the worst thing that could have happened.
I know.
So yeah.
But it's interesting because it's sort of, you get rid of one villain, but we've sort of created a supervillain.
Yeah.
By having these 2 groups come together. It's not a good.
Well, it's not good because, again, Janae, for as powerful as she was by, with her discussions with Carol, it was clear she was not a believer. Right. Yeah. She was very much a cynic and a skeptic and probably an agnostic. And, people who believe in God are foolish in her opinion, her mind. And now you have all of the, the Jesus freak people that are total true believers and totally think that this is all destiny and it's, power up on high leading them to the promised land. But they now have all of her firepower, which is something they didn't have before, Right. So yeah, I mean, it again, it's like, it's frightening. It's like, oh, well, this is the worst thing that could happen,
Yeah,
so
it's terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we did a good job. We hit a lot of our points. I don't think I have anything left on my list. Anything we didn't hit on your stuff that you want to make sure we talk about?
Just that there was a moment there in the bed and breakfast when Janae comes in and Daryl and Carol have like gone to another part of the house and they're kind of hiding, right? And remember, he goes out to the car because they try and think maybe they can get in the car and drive away, and Carol has the shotgun, so they're doing all that. But Janae is talking to Theo and Dee Dee, mostly to Dee Dee, And Janae's like, let me introduce myself. My name is Mary and Janae. And Dee Dee's like, I know who you are. My dad told me about you. And Janae's like, oh, does he like, blessed with good health? Because she's like, your dad knows me, and Dee Dee's like, no, he died young, actually, from injuries he sustained fighting with the Maquis, which was a rebel group from World War II, from the 40s. And she goes, but he told me about people like you who came to our village during another war. They were looking for children too, to put on trains. And I mean, that I love that line, because that woman had stones, man.
Oh yeah.
And I'm guessing like she's like, look, you're gonna shoot me anyway, so I might as well be able to take the moral high ground and rub your face in it, And then later on, when Janae is kind of staring down Carol on one side and Daryl on the other, right before they shoot her with the dart, Janae, again, it's these people who think that like their suffering somehow is unique to this universe, because she like whines about, do you have any idea what it's like to like watch the person you love get torn to shreds and you're separated by the glass and you can't help them or touch. And the whole time I'm like, look around, lady. Everybody has a story like that's still alive. Everybody, and it's just, again, I appreciated it because the character was true to her conviction, right? That event was huge in that character's story when her husband was literally torn to shreds in front of her.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, come on, there's nothing that you're saying that at all makes you somehow like more sad.
Yeah.
Or more pain or more sorrow. It's like, no, read the frickin' room, And so anyway, I just got a kick out of that yet we have yet another bad guy who, when push comes to shove and they're finally revealing their motivation, they tell the sob story that they think explains everything that they've done. And it's like, no, everybody else has a story just like that. And we all didn't decide to become supervillains,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, there was even a moment too, like before, you know what I mean? Like she's even asking Carol, like, have you had such suffering as well?
Yeah.
And she's like, you could see Carol was about to be like, I was expecting her to be like, well, I mean, I lost one child.
Mm-hmm.
She became the undead, but there's this awesome moment where this person we were fighting took my adopted son and cut off his head and stuck it on a pike.
On a pike, yeah, that happened. Yeah,
that happened. And, I was almost responsible for my entire group being killed by that same woman because I went on a whole revenge route thing. And,
Right.
So, and right now, I might have unintentionally killed a really nice man by making him fly me here, but no.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your husband, please.
By all means, yeah. I mean, literally, when Janae asked her that question, I almost expected Carol to be like, "Hold my beer." It was just like, again, I just think it's funny because they almost always, when they go that route, it's whoever's telling the story thinks that like whatever happened to them is just so tragic. Nobody could possibly relate to what horror they had to endure at the end of the world, and it's just like, no, it should shut up. So, and again, like you said, great bubbly head death for Janae. I mean, that was just, the first time I watched the episode, I rewound and watched that scene like 4 times. Okay. So yeah, that was really fun. I think that's it. Oh, I know. There was a bit, another, I thought was a really fun line where back at the nest, when Janae is kind of taken over and they have Lo Sang and locked up, or they've captured him, and she's like, "Where's the boy?" And he's like, "I don't know. You should, Isabel probably could tell you." And she says something like, "Well, no, she's not gonna tell me anything now," which is lets him know that she's dead. And then she says he says something like, I'm worried about my people and what's going to happen to them. And Janae turns around and leaves him behind, like walks out of the room. And she says, I wouldn't worry so much about the future. You don't have one. And I thought that was a great line, where it's just kind of like, yeah, you can think about it all you want, dude, but we're going to take you out back and shoot you in like 10 minutes anyway. You know what I mean? It's just like, you're done. So I thought that was, again, I really liked her as a villain, and I loved the way she died, but I was super surprised that they killed her when they did.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's it for talking about the episode. Look at that. We did it.
Yeah, we did it, people.
All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to discuss our listener feedback we received this week and what's coming up on the podcast.
Awesome. So as always, stick around. Bonjour. Because we'll be right back.
Now there's about 20 of them out there.
What will we do?
Don't worry, we're safe in here. They'll never get in.
Why is it that in every zombie story, people always think that their safe haven is invulnerable?
I know. It's like, hello, the walkers are totally going to get in. You better get ready for it.
No! Diane, get behind me. No, it's not stopping.
Do something, Jack!
And another thing, how come nobody in a zombie story has ever seen a zombie story?
Do you know how much time in human life would be saved if just one person in the group was up on the genre?
What do we do?
Aim for the head.
What?
Aim for the head.
You heard them. Aim for the head.
Quick, Diane, I think we should try and fix the barricades.
I think we should listen to them.
Now, that's the first good idea they've had all episode.
I still don't think they're gonna make it.
Aim for the Head, a weekly podcast covering the hit AMC programs The Walking Dead and Fear the Walking Dead. Join hosts Diana and Steve as they recap and discuss the latest episodes. Aim for the Head, available on iTunes. You can also follow them on Facebook.
Hi, I'm Ross Marquand, and you're listening to the Aim for the Head podcast with Diana and Steve. And remember, always aim for the head, because body shots just don't work.
Hey, everybody, we're back. We're going to jump right into our listener feedback. So away we go. So first off, we got some feedback for previous episode from our pal Andy, writing in from Germany. Bonjour, Andy.
Bonjour, Andy.
He is, of course, calling. He's writing in from Germany, so they have a little bit of a a different schedule. So I'm sure frequent listeners know Andy's usually responding to either the last episode or the episode before.
Yeah.
So this is feedback on episode 2, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So Andy writes in and says, "Bonjour, toujours la Steve, la Diana." I hope I said that right. Hey, at least it wasn't baguette.
Were you twirling your mustache?
I was twirling my mustache.
Okay.
You just couldn't tell.
Right.
Of course, when I checked the data of the Beechcraft, I took the fact into account that they load the plane with cans of fuel. I just didn't want to bore you two out with the details. So it's your own fault now, Steve, that you get to hear them now for defending the showrunners. And he puts a little wink emoji. He says, the plane can fly around 1,500 kilometers. Carrying a maximum load of fuel, it can refuel 2 times, that's 4,500 kilometers. The route over Greenland is 7,000 kilometers long, so they would have to refuel in Greenland. It would have been so cool if there was a thriving community in Greenland where they get the fuel from. Greenland is the country with the lowest population density in the world. It has the size of Mexico with only 50,000 inhabitants. That's crazy. So it would be ideal to build a big community. No walkers and no aggressive other communities there. Instead, we get crazy people everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I am so tired of crazy people. Once in the good old times of The Walking Dead, people did crazy things to survive. Now they do crazy things because they are crazy. In France, we get crazy religious people fighting crazy fascist people. Or this guy who was tortured in the last scene. After not killing Daryl, he ran back to Marion so she can torture him for it. What is this? Or this silly plan to kill Daryl, poison him, or shoot him in his sleep. Sorry for the rant, but people doing nonsense is so not fun for me anymore. But your podcast is still fun, so until the next episode, Andy from good old Germany. Well, Andy, we always appreciate you writing in. Even when the episodes frustrate you, you still give us your feedback, let us know what you're thinking. You stuck with us all through the fear, and any listener who stuck through the fear episodes is definitely one of the good ones. So, thanks for writing in, Andy. I appreciate your thoughts, your feedback.
Yeah, Andy, I'm sorry, but I think what the Walking Dead world is telling us all is that, after the apocalypse, the only people who are going to be left are crazy people.
Yeah, they're the only ones that are going to have enough fortitude to make it through, probably.
Right, to do the weird-ass things you have to do to survive,
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
But yeah, keep on listening, and maybe this. I'm curious to see what you think about this episode we just talked about. Hopefully, we'll get that next week or the week after, and hopefully you liked it, because I thought this episode was a lot of fun.
Yeah, can't wait to hear.
All right.
Thanks for writing in, Andy. We look forward to it next week.
Absolutely. Yep. All right, moving along, we are going to stick with our international desk, and we got an email from our pal Bev, too, from Stormy Devon. And
hello, Bev.
And how you doing, Bev? She goes, "Hi, guys. I hope you had a great week. Well, here we are already at the second half of Season 2, and what did we all think of this episode? It was an exciting start. Carol sure was lucky that the injection didn't go through that leather jacket."
Indeed.
Oh,
sure.
boy, was she. Yep.
Lucky. Using air quotes here.
Yes. She goes, "Maybe it's one of those biker jackets with the armored plating." Yeah, maybe. Or just like one of those showrunner jackets.
Yeah.
You know what it was? It was an executive producer jacket, because that's what she is.
It was, yeah.
She goes on to say, "I love seeing her work her way around the fortress. It felt like the good old days of Walking Dead. It was great to have our leads back together, and what an emotional reunion it was. Brought a tear to my eyes. It was annoying that Isabel's death was so rushed. I know that there was a lot going on and it wasn't safe to hang around, but Daryl loved this lady and she's a major character, so they could have spent a bit more time on it. Look, we already said, Bev, nobody got time for that stuff right now, so got to keep moving." She goes on to say, "It became all the more frustrating that they rushed that goodbye, only to have our heroes spend what seemed like days with a weird old couple. When they first arrived, they were eager to stay for the shortest time possible. Then all of a sudden, they were fixing up some old car. It was exciting when Janae and her team turned up, but then a main character got wiped out really quickly again, although it was a fun death." I think she's talking about Janae.
Yeah, that was a fun death.
That was, man. Bubbly head deaths are the best.
Yes.
She goes on to say, "I did enjoy this episode, and spending time with the old couple was more about Daryl and Carol sharing time together again. But with only 6 episodes in a season, it felt like a waste of time. I know that TV production has evolved over the last couple of years, and this is an expensive show to produce, but is 6 episodes really enough to make a successful drama series?" I agree. I agree. I think, you know what? You couldn't have gone 8. You couldn't have gone 10. You couldn't have done 12. You know what I mean? It's like, I understand that. Again, Diana and I, when we grew up, TV, like a regular season of TV, it was like 30 episodes. I mean, they worked crazy hours back then. And nowadays, if you get, 12, 14 episodes in a season, you're lucky.
Yeah.
Right. And again, I bet you're right, Bev. A lot of it is cost. This show, I'm sure, is super expensive. They're shooting in France. It's got to be pricey, right?
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I agree. I think definitely they could have. It would have been nice if they could have stretched another episode or 2 at least into this story. But anyway, she goes on to say, "So I will leave you with this question that I have been pondering for a while now. Would we love The Walking Dead as much as we do if we had only 6 episodes a season to get to know the characters? In fact, would the last 10 years be seen as a golden age of television if some of the greatest shows of all time had shorter seasons?" That's an interesting question. Looking forward to hear what you both think. Bev instills Stormy Devon, and she then ends by saying, "P.S. When Carol said that it was a feeling, not a person that came back, I shouted, BS at screen. Very annoying. I am right there with you, sister." But Diana, what do you think about the question she posed?
With the less episodes,
Yeah.
I don't know, because if you think about it, think about some of the. I think it's finding that sweet spot, because when you think about it, even Walking Dead, they did 12. Was it 8 episodes? 8 episode things,
they would do
right?
they would basically do like 16 episodes in a season.
Yeah,
It'd be
yeah.
broken into 2 8-episode halves.
Right. But even if you take, like, there's other shows that maybe do 10 or 12 or whatever it may be. We have definitely pointed out Walking Dead episodes that were like, oh, that was kind of a filler episode. That was kind of a slow whatever episode. And in every season of Walking Dead, you can find the slowest episode, the one that didn't move very well.
Mhm.
It's kind, you know what I mean?
Oh,
So
yeah.
I don't know. I think yes, you lose out on some of the character development, but you do gain episodes that move along quickly, because they got to kind of get where they're gonna go. You know?
They don't got time to muck around. They just it's got to be plot.
Yeah, I think though, if they create like in this case, they started out with 6. And since they did 6 and then now they're doing 6 again, it's almost like now they're in sort of a pattern. It's kind of hard to break the pattern, because with Game of Thrones, they did the same thing where they had like, I think it was like 12, we'll say for sake of argument, it was like 10 or 12 episodes a season for the first like 4 or 5 seasons. And then it was like 8 episodes. And then the final season was what? Wasn't it 7, I think? And
I'm unaware of the show. I have to ask, were there dice?
There were no dice.
Okay. No, I don't know what you're talking about.
They got a lot of flack for not spending enough time. So I don't know.
Well, I mean, look at Stranger Things, right? I mean, the seasons were all over the place, where they'd have different number of episodes a season, and then there'd be some episodes that were like 5 hours long.
Yeah.
And other episodes were 38 minutes
sure,
long.
yeah.
I mean, so yeah, I don't. The only thing I know for sure is that I would have enjoyed the last 5 years of Fear the Walking Dead if there was only 6 episodes in a season. But
what do you mean?
It just I think it's a real interesting question, particularly with this show. With just imagine if every season of the main show had been 6 episodes long. What would we look at it? Would it have lasted as long? Would we look at it the same way? Because again, like you said, you don't have that time to establish the characters by having those bottle episodes or the slower plot episodes where it is more just, hey, this is going to be a Rick and Daryl episode where they run around and chase Jesus the whole time. Okay.
Yeah.
They would never be able to do that.
Yeah.
If it was only 6. And so I don't know. That's a really good question, Bev. I think probably my answer would be we would not appreciate them as much, because I don't think they would have lasted. I think we would have gotten we would have grown tired with them, because it's like we would all want more.
Right. I think because I think what she's saying too is, like, in this moment she really kind of wanted more from some of the stuff, and it feels kind of rushed now. So I get that.
Sure.
So I'll take what I can get, kind of thing. Is that okay to say? I do wish that they had at least, like, let's say 2 more episodes, and they just did like 8 episodes total for like season 1, season 2. I think 2 more would really help flesh some things out just a little bit more.
Yeah.
But I think they're doing a good job with what they have,
It's funny how naive I was in it, that I thought that for season 1 they did 6 episodes because it was almost like a mid-season replacement show, right? Where they brought it on. They didn't want to invest to do a full season, so they did a half season. And then when they renewed it, I really thought that this year they were going to do 12 episodes, and it would be a 6-episode first half and a 6-episode second half. And when you told me, I think in episode 1, we're like, no, they're just 6. Internally, I know I'm like, yeah, I know. But internally, I'm like, what?
Yeah, why did they do that? That makes no sense.
So yeah, and again, like we pointed out in episode 1, man, did Carol get to France pretty quick and fast. Right? I mean,
she did.
If they had more episodes to play with, that would have taken multiple episodes for her to get there easily.
Oh yeah.
Easily. So
yeah.
So, great feedback, Bev. Great feedback.
Yeah, really got us talking, and I think it's one of those things where I think more would be great, but I think they're doing a good job with what they got, and I'd hate to see them sort of make it more bloated.
Yes. Yeah.
Maybe 1 or 2 more episodes maybe would be helpful, but I don't know. 12 or more than that would be just, I don't know. I think it'd be too much.
See, I think they've created such a cool world with France as the setting. I think they could have found stuff to do. They could have, particularly because if you look at both seasons, they're both kind of chase seasons, where Daryl is pursuing, running from Caudron and Janae, right, and trying to find the nest and bring the kid to safety. And then season 2, it's trying to find the kid. Carol's trying to find him while avoiding the bad guy. I think that there's that type of storyline. You could populate it with episodes where they go to strange, weird places in France, little enclaves of people that have survived, but they're as Andy would point out, they're crazy and do weird, crazy things. But it would be interesting to see, because you have to admit that they've been surprising us a lot with stuff we've never seen before, and it's I think we're all enjoying it. So
yeah.
So I think in this case they could have made it work with 12 episodes, but again that's just me.
Yeah.
And like you said, I'm happy for what they're giving us, but yeah, you're right. Like 8 or maybe 10 episodes would have been better.
Yeah. Sure. Thanks for the feedback, though, Bev.
Absolutely. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah. Can't wait to hear from you next week.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, we got some feedback on the Facebook. This is from Karen, not related to Lauren Cohen. And
hey,
she
Karen.
wrote in, hey, Karen. And she wrote in and said, oh, man, I don't know what's up with this show anymore. I think it would have been so much more dramatic if Daryl had seen Isabel get shanked rather than just the aftermath. And then they don't really talk about her, which is true. Carol was on her killing spree until she saw Isabel. Why didn't she just kill her too? Where is the urgency? There's time to spend the night, spend another day getting parts, then another night, and then eggs? And then eggs? I love it.
Okay, they were truffle eggs. Let's be honest, people.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, I love it. What? Carol has been carrying around that stupid doll this entire time.
Yeah.
Whatever. I'll still go down with the ship. I just don't get it.
Yeah, I got to say, we didn't talk about that, but I thought it was like a knife that Judith made for him. Like that was like the scabbard that had all the, costume jewelry and rocks and stuff. I didn't know. It was weird, but you're right. I'm like, when she pulled that out and gave it to Daryl, I'm like, where were you carrying that? It's like when they captured you, and we're going to turn you into cannon fodder. They didn't search you and take everything you had,
Yeah, you'd think they would have checked your pockets for, weapons or anything.
Yeah, or whatever that was. Yeah, that was a weird little moment there where I'm like, really? So yeah, I agree with you on that. And you're right. The whole thing of we got to go after the kid. Ooh, bed and breakfast. Let's stay a couple days.
I like me some truffle eggs.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, okay. And I mean, part of it they explain in that they wanted a car, and so they had to, find the battery and the parts and the hoses and all the stuff that he talked about they needed. Mm-hmm. So I get that okay, that could take a while if you're having to check all these different cars and the thing. But it did seem weird. Like, why didn't you guys just go on foot then and say screw the car? You know what I mean? If you're that gung ho to go after the kid,
yeah.
Why suddenly are you like, no, we can wait? So, but you're right, and it definitely was frustrating. There's no doubt.
Yeah, agreed. Thanks for writing in, Karen. We love hearing from you. We missed you last week.
We did. Yeah. Glad you're back.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So our next piece of feedback, and this also came via the Facebook, mm-hmm. and this is from our pal Erica Price. Hello, Erica. And I have to say, I read this feedback already, and Erica, I love it. It's great. So this is amazing. So she starts out by saying, bonjour. She goes, yeah, Mila Steve. She goes, while I hate to bring up the F word,
Oh, no.
the fear vibes of the cold open with Carol surviving a barrage of very big bullets, a dart, and then the cannonball precisely hitting in just the right spot made my eyes roll straight back to the back of my head. And I have to say, me too. I agree. It was a lot of coinky dink there, huh? And then she goes on to say, their reunion was very sweet, though. It, however, doesn't make up for the strong suspension of disbelief. We, of course, knew Isabel wasn't long for this world. Poor Daryl. He's never going to risk his heart again. So why the decision to have Carol say it wasn't a person that came back? See, again, we're back to this thing, right? We know Rick is back. Why not tell Daryl? This old couple thinks Carol is Isabel, but they don't bat an eye when she speaks with an American accent or mentions that she had a daughter. Hello, right? I thought there was a sense of urgency from Daryl. They should have just taken this old dude's perfectly good car. I agree. When they found the car with the guy who told them to go to Florida, I thought, instead of like scavenging parts from this car, why not just take that car?
Yeah.
Drive it. I mean, the guy might freak out, but like in 10 minutes, he's totally going to forget you took it anyway. So, but anyway, you're right. That's a really good point. That bothered me too, where it's just like, it seems like an awful lot of work where you're going to disable a perfectly good working car to maybe make another one work. Okay, whatever. Anyway, she goes on to say, I'm glad to be rid of Genet, but I'm surprised her people immediately joined sides with Lo Sang and equally surprised at his trust in them. Suddenly, a lot of what's been happening since Carol came on the scene isn't making sense. I'm losing faith a bit, but of course, I'll keep watching. Again, it's I think the Lo Sang thing, what we were talking about, like, the bad group 1 and bad group 2 are now forming like the super bad group, right?
Yeah.
This is like the cream of the bad guys, it's a super group, right? But I think the reason why it's happening is like we said, they're adding the religious fervor of Lo Sang's group with the sort of military gung-ho of Genet's group. And again, the mixture, I think, is going to be even worse for poor Daryl, because not only are they going to be pursuing him to the end of time, they now have all the military firepower to do it, so it's going to be even harder for them to get away. But anyway, I love this feedback, Erica. I again, super great points. And, this is the problem when you start injecting like rational common sense into things.
I know.
So you just got to kind of go with it, right?
Yeah. She says she's going to stay watching, though, so we hope to hear back from you again next week, Erica.
Absolutely. You can point out the next ridiculous thing.
Yes. So speaking of the next ridiculous thing will happen probably in next week's episode. There'll be something. Even if it's tiny. There'll be something tiny.
Well, we're going to jump back and see Ash again.
Yes. Next week's episode, title, Vouloir c'est pouvoir. Which, it's funny, there's two different translations. They have translations on the Wikipedia page, which are like cited translations, like very fancy AP style book.
Right.
And that one says the translation is to want is to be able. But if you just plug it into Google Translate, which usually is not very accurate, it's close, but it's a little more...
Well, it's more of a literal translation of what those words mean, but we don't know what that saying means.
Right, exactly. But in Google Translate, it translates it as wanting is power.
It's interesting.
Which I thought, that's why I wanted to include both of them, because I think they both are an interesting look at it.
Yeah.
So no details yet, but we did get some really great scenes at the end. Yes, we are gonna be seeing Ash again. Looks like surprise, surprise, he's having a hard time keeping the ghouls away while he's trying to keep the plane safe. We also saw Cadron again, and it looks like the Cadron might be changing sides and coming over to fight with the good guys, as he said.
Yeah,
he told them to say, "Tell Dixon I did it for the boy."
Yeah, I like that Daryl's reaction was, "Huh."
How about that?
Yeah, but yeah, we saw we see him, and he definitely looks like he has gotten away from the nest.
Yes.
And so he is kind of out on the road, if you will. And yeah, I also got the sense that, I think that he might, again, probably going to get killed, but I think he's going to at least try and protect Laurent. Not because he likes Daryl. I think it, like you said, it's everything he's going to do from now on is for Laurent.
Yeah. Agreed.
And I believe also we saw our torch singer again.
Yes. So it does look like they're probably going to make it to the nightclub again.
Yeah.
Because we see her giving some advice.
And so it kind of, I got the sense that she was now running the nightclub.
Yeah, that definitely seems like that's the case.
Yeah, so that's going to be interesting to see what happens. And then I think didn't we see Ash kind of struggling, and he has to get into a car, and the ghouls are all banging on the windows and stuff. So yeah, he kind of is getting himself into a bit of a pickle, waiting for her to come back. But we'll have to see if there's a season 3. They clearly aren't going to fly away at the end of this season, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah. So we'll have to see what the next episode has in store for us. It looks really good.
It does look like there's going to be again a lot of action, a lot of plot, which is going to be great. It's going to be exciting. But I'm going to throw this out now. Do you think there's a chance that if they do get back to Ash at the plane, and Ash is like, "So what happened to your daughter?" and they're Carol is Carol either going to lie to him and say, "Oh, she's dead," or is Carol going to come clean and say, "Actually, I came for this guy, and now we have this kid"? Do you think there's a chance Ash might tell her what she can go do with herself and leaves them there?
Oh God, yes. But then he might feel guilty, and then he'll turn around and come back. I don't know.
I think he's going to go to Greenland for a little loving.
But they're gone now, so
I know they're dead. But there's got to be more crazy environmentalists there,
yeah,
right?
but that's and also here's the thing. They're gone, but their little outpost is still there. So
still there. Yeah, absolutely. You can go make the reindeer head stew.
Yeah. He'd have to build another perimeter fence though. So
yeah, that's true.
Keep the other highly sexualized Greenland women out of the compound. So that's what's coming up on the podcast next week. So a little bit of stuff we've been busy with since we last chatted. And Steve, you went someplace very interesting this Saturday.
I did. The Music Box Theater, which is a wonderful theater here in Chicago. It's a big old theater built in the 50s or the 40s. And they recently redid all the seats, so now they're cup holders, which is great. But it's a huge theater, it holds 700 people, and every spooky season in October they do the whole month. It's 31 days of horror, where literally every night they're showing a horror movie of some kind at least once. But they also somewhere in there they do a 24-hour horror marathon called the Music Box of Horrors, and that was this Saturday. So it started at noon on Saturday and ran till noon on Sunday. And so myself and a couple of my friends went, and we made it 13 hours. So
that's a lot.
Yeah, we got there actually 14 hours, because we got there at 11 because it's general admission. They opened the doors at 11. We wanted to get seats, and the first show started at 12, and it was amazing. It was a lot of fun. There's some really interesting films, a very eclectic collection of movies. They showed George Romero's The Crazies, which is a movie he made in the 1970s before Dawn of the Dead, and it's about a chemical spill in Pennsylvania where the townspeople are affected, and they literally become these kind of crazy, violent, kind of like zombie-like people, but they're not ghouls. They're humans that are alive. They're just infected, right? They're more like 28 Days Later type people. And that was really interesting to see that on the big screen. But the absolute highlight was at midnight on Saturday, they showed Jaws.
That's amazing.
And it was a 35 millimeter print, so it was Jaws on film. And like I was telling Diana here before we started, the festival the last couple of years has sold out. So all 700 seats have been sold, and this year was no exception. And so I got to watch Jaws on film in a theater with probably about 650 people that were all just totally into it and laughing at all the right parts and gasping at all the right parts. And it was, the film experience was so much better because the audience was amazing. And so,
oh God, yeah,
it was incredible. So that was pretty great. And then when that ended, it was like 3 a.m, and we were all like, we're old, we have to go home now. So
but what a great way to cap it off, though.
Oh yeah, it was amazing. So, and there were a couple movies they showed that they got the directors there, so they did a little Q&A after the movie, which was really interesting. And one was they showed Prom Night 3, which yes, they did. They actually made like Prom Night 4 too, so that's not the end of it. And that movie came out in like 1989. Okay, so a long time ago. And they brought the director in. He was great, and he was like, he thanked us like 5 times when the movie was over when he came up, because he's like, this is the first time I've seen this movie with this size of an audience that was as into it as you guys were. And, he's like, you laughed at all the parts where I wanted people to laugh and got all the jokes. And he just said, he thanked us. He's like, it was so like justified for him. Like he felt like, he did a good job, and that was really cool to hear him say that. So, but yeah, it was super fun. The Music Box is an amazing place. I know you and we've seen a bunch of stuff there, and we saw The Thing in 70 millimeter there. We saw Alien there. We, seen a bunch of stuff. So yeah, if you're ever in Chicago, or if you're in the Chicago area, and you're looking for something to do, check out the Music Box Theater. I think it's musicboxtheater.org or .com. And check out their lineup. They're always doing festivals. They're always doing special screenings and midnight screenings and everything. And it's an amazing place. And the popcorn is great. And there's a bar right attached to it, so you can go get all liquored up if you so choose as well. And it's amazing. So good time,
it's really cool.
For everybody.
It's great, and it's a good neighborhood too. So there's plenty of places to go get something to eat before or after the show. And we can say with absolute certainty that parking is usually not that big of a deal.
It is not. No.
Yeah.
And also just for the festival too, they bring in a food truck and park it right in front of the theater. So so you can go, it's pricey, I'm not gonna lie. You spend like $18, but really good po' boy sandwiches and other stuff too. So right there, but they also suspend their no outside food policy for the marathon. So people were bringing in like personal pizzas and all kinds of outside food. So it was, again, it's a really amazing time. And of course you get a bracelet. You can come and go as you please. So you can see a couple movies and then I want to go home and, do something and come back. And so it really a fun time. I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun.
Nice. Oh, what a great way to celebrate your birthday weekend.
There you go. I know.
And speaking of celebrations, we decided to sort of jump in on the, lots of people do the 31 days of horror. And we sort of jumped in a little late in the game, but right now we're running our 12 days of horror. It's just like the 12 days of Christmas, except it's got a whole...
On the first day of horror, Diana showed to me.
Beating heart I pulled out from my chest. I don't know.
Reanimator with Jeff Coombs. I don't know. Isn't that what you did?
Oh, I don't know. So what we're doing is we're just highlighting for 12 days leading all the way up to Halloween. We're just highlighting previous podcasts where we've covered some great horror movies that are really fun to revisit. Maybe you've watched it before and you never got a chance to listen to the podcast on it, so go ahead and listen. Or maybe you were looking for something interesting to watch during spooky season, and just talking about it or putting out a link for it, and go watch the movie. Pretty much everything that I've got scheduled up for the complete 12 Days of Horror are all recommended movies that I would go back and watch again and again. So yay! So keep an eye on our social media. We've already sent out links to the first 2, so we're 2 days in. So keep your eye out for the next 10 days. It'll be just a little something fun. There's a couple people so far that have just commented. I know Alma Contreras got in on it because she said she saw Reanimator in the movie theater and she used one of the vomit emojis or whatever. So yeah, so even if you don't have time to listen to the podcast, or if you haven't seen the movie before, to watch and then listen to the podcast, if you've got any kind of memory associated with the movie, just share it with us. We'd love to see it. So get the conversation going on those posts. We'd love to see some more conversation about these classic episodes. We had so much fun recording them, and now you get a second chance to maybe listen to them for the first time, maybe. Who knows?
There you go.
And
I know I had fun when we recorded them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are a couple of gems in there out of the 12. There are a few in my head that I'm like, oh, that was so much fun. It was so much fun recording that one or whatever. So yeah, one thing's for sure. When I was putting the list together, I realized we really need to do more of these. So yeah, we need to cover some more horror movies so that next year maybe we can do 31 Days of Horror. We'll see.
Challenge accepted.
Gauntlet thrown for sure. Before we wrap up, we just want to say to all of our U.S. listeners, sorry, International Desk, but we just wanted to tell people it is election season, and we know there's a lot of stuff going on out there and a lot of different information, and we are by no means telling you who to vote for, but we are telling you to please get out and vote. The only way you can be sure that your voice is heard is that if you cast your vote. And it's so important for not just the national elections, but make sure you are informed about judge retention and school board committee and things like that. Get really involved in your, because politics is really important on that local level as well. And we really dove in and got to know a lot of the candidates locally for us this year. And we're just inspired to make sure that everybody else do the same thing. If you got an issue or a problem with the way the government's doing something, get involved. Make your voice heard. This is your chance. So yeah, election season it's started because I believe
there are 15 days until the election. So
correct. And a majority of the U.S. states are offering early voting. Yep. And a lot of feedback I've seen from a lot of states so far, I'm seeing lots of feedback from people that have had some decent wait lines. So make a plan, pick a day. A lot of these early voting places will have times available on the weekend. You should check with your work as well, because legally they need to give you time away from your job to be able to
go vote.
To go and vote. So check with your individual job, see how much time you are allotted. And make a plan. Go with friends. Go with family. Bring someone with you. Bring a buddy.
There you go. Yeah.
Because you might have to stand in a little bit of a line. And you know what? That's okay.
That's okay. Absolutely. Yeah, I would just say, vote like your democracy depends on it, because it does.
It kind of does. And that's as soapboxy as we'll get.
That's as soapboxy as we're going to get. Yep.
But that's going to do it for us this week, guys. We look forward to chatting with you next week. But until then, as always, I'm Diana.
And I'm La Steve. Bonjour.
Don't forget to always aim for the head.
Because body shots, they just don't work.
Oh.
To send us an email, write us at aimfortheheadpodcast@gmail.com. And our Twitter handle is @AFTHpodcast. Pictures and video are always welcome at our Instagram account, Aim for the Head Podcast, all one word. But the best way to keep in touch with us is to just like our Facebook page to get all of our updates in your feed.
I'd like to save democracy if I could, and I can only do that if you vote as well.
That's right.
So-
Particularly if you're in a battleground state, then definitely get out and vote.
Could you please? Thanks.
Bev, maybe not you, but
Yeah.
everybody else.